Hello everybody. In this video, I want to show you how to evolve a database. So this would come in handy like during production, right? When you are creating your data structures and you have something you think you've settled on, you call that version 1, and then you want to make a change. The reason why you'd probably want to do it this way is if, let's say that you have worked on an application, you have a database structure, talking an SQL relational database. You have a database structure, you've deployed this product out into production, people are using it, and then you get a feature request which requires a change to the database. That happens a lot. And so how do you deal with that, right? So if you structure your scripts during development to evolve your database such that you go from one version to another and test that transition, then it makes it easier to just take that set of version 2 database scripts and just run those database scripts, and at least you'll know that they've been tested and they'll work fine. All right, so here I have my database folder over here on my right corner, left-hand column, excuse me, over here, and I hope you can see it. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, I think that should be fine, even for YouTube. Okay, so I have a database folder, and I have DB version 1. Those are my scripts: create database, create tables, create user, drop database, drop user, and insert test data. Now, I have created a previous video, which I'll link in the description below, that goes through how you actually create this initial database, right? So I'm going to rerun these scripts just to put the database in a known state. All right, so it's I'm in the database folder /initialize. So what I have is a bash shell script that just runs all the scripts in this database, right? So, and here is that shell script right in front of you, right up here. So it just ran these scripts, and if there were any problems, it'd write them out to the console and to the log file. And like I said earlier, I have a whole video that talks about this piece, right? So I'm not going to rediscuss that. Here's what it gives us, though. It gives us this home inventory database with one table called items, and in this table we have inserted some test data. So this is a very simple one table schema, right? So the request comes in from the users. They love the product. It's letting them create an inventory. The problem is it only lets them have one inventory, right? So they want multiple inventories for different locations. So you're going to have to create another table and link with a foreign key relationship, a one-to-many relationship, to the items table, right? So some items will belong to one inventory and some items in the items table will belong to another inventory. So at least that's the plan, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the scripts that do this. Now, the way I am doing it here is I create another folder called DB_version 2. All right, and I'm going to put the new database scripts here. So let's just run through these. The first thing I'm going to call, well, let's take a look at the README doc. This project is up in my repo. I'll give you a link to that as well. All right, so actually, that's hard to look at right there. Let's look at this one, and let's shut that one down. All right, and let's close that file. There we go. Here's the README. So first, right, the scripts, when you run them together, create DB version 1, then create the second version. The script, the initialized database script, runs all the scripts in the DB version 1 directory. Okay, that ends up with that one table schema with test data inserted. Then it calls the scripts in the DB2 version. It creates the inventories table first, so it's going to call that script first. Create inventories table.sql. Then it's going to insert a row into that inventories table. Okay. And the reason why is when we make the alteration to the SQL, we're going to get an error if we try to insert a value into the foreign key field, unless we relax the foreign key constraints. And I don't want to do that at this point, right? I'm just going to say, look, whatever data that we have in the database is going to belong to this inventory that we're going to stick in there, right? So that's the approach I'm taking here. Now, business logic, you could write programs right in your application to then assign whatever inventory the user wants to create and assign it to a particular inventory row, or the items to the inventory row. Those are details that can be sorted out later, right? So the way that this script is going to execute when I uncomment these out is it's going to create the first version of the database, and then it's going to go through, create the second version by calling these scripts in that particular order. So like I say, here's our initial version. We have one table called items. It has this these test data inserted. Okay, and when we take a look at the initialized database script, this is the script, the shell script that's going to run. I'm going to uncomment these out. Okay, these are the DB2 version scripts. All right, and here's where we're saying, okay, we're going to first draw a line across the screen with the echo statement. Then we're going to say running DB2 version 2 scripts, and then echo adding inventories table. We're going to write that to the log and to the console. And then we're going to run the create inventories table. And if there is an error, it will write it to the console and the log. Then I have a comment here that says, hey, we need to add something to the inventories table so that we can then run the alter items table script. Once we insert that row, then the altering items table, we can just, we'll go take a look at these scripts individually here. We'll run and insert a value into the foreign key field. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a look at the create inventories table. So this is just your, these scripts all look very same, right? There's a lot of boilerplate up in here. And then we use home inventory. And then some comments, say table structure for the table called inventories. And then we'll do drop table if it exists, which it won't the first time around. Create table inventories. So we're going to have a primary key, a name, varchar 100, not null, a description, varchar 200, a date, varchar 50, not null, and the engine NODB, and default char set UTF-8. And then rerun the alter table for inventories, add primary key ID, and then alter table inventories, modify ID, not null, auto increment. So all that's just in the create table script for the inventories. And then insert inventory row. I'm sorry, next. Yeah, so then we're going to run this one next, right? Because once we create that table, I should say that when we run these like create table, then at the bottom right on line on the end of it, we say commit, right? To commit, we start off with start transaction and then commit that transaction. So that table gets created. Then we're going to insert the row into that table, okay, with some data. So name, insert into the inventories table, name, description, date, values, home inventory, list of all items in the home, and then now for the date. And then finally, we're going to run alter items table. Now this is where we're going to take the existing table and we're going to add an inventory ID field or column here, int 11, not null, default 1. So we're going to just go ahead and insert 1 into this table, and the 1 is going to relate to the row in the inventories table that we just created, because that primary key is set to auto increment, so that value is going to be 1. And then references inventory ID on delete. Okay, so then add a constraint, foreign key inventory ID on foreign key inventory ID, right? So in other words, on this field, inventory ID, add a foreign key constraint. And then references. So this is really just like one big statement from this point, right? The first one is alter table items, add a column, boom, and you see that semicolon right there at the end. The next two lines are one statement, and I've broken them up across multiple lines. Okay, so alter table, add constraint, foreign key, and then references. So this is what field in the inventories, or what column in the inventories table does this foreign key field reference. And then I set on cascade, on delete cascade, on update cascade as well. Okay, and then commit. And then once we run that, we have then we have two tables in the database and all the items, and then we can do queries on those items, and they will relate to that inventory. So let's go ahead and run these scripts. I have saved these. Initialize database. Save that. Make sure you've saved everything. Okay, don't need the README anymore. And I'm just going to increase the height of my console, and then I type something somewhere. There we go. So let's initialize database. Okay, so this is the beauty of scripting the database, right? If you didn't have database scripts, then you'd have to go in and manually dork around with your user interface. So let's go to php.myadmin, rerun this, or refresh the screen. We still have the test data. We now have a different column here, or a new column, inventory ID. All right. We can see here we have inventories table and the items table. If we look at inventories table, we'll see that we have one row in that table. All righty. Now we can query this database, and we can say, let me clear the screen again. We can say MySQL. Okay. Let me make this come up here a little bit farther. Select, let me see, use home inventory. All right. So database changed. Now I can say select star. Well, yeah, I'll do star from inventories, items, where inventory ID it'll be like this: in inventories.id equals items dot inventory ID, like that. Okay, run this. Oh, semicolon. Well, let me make this. There we go. And there's your results. So we have ID 1. That's the inventory name, right? The inventory, right? So the primary key of the inventory, home inventory, list of all items, description, the date. So all this stuff repeats, right? Because that's where the one-to-many relationship comes in. All these different items here, like for example, this truck, right? Its ID is 1. The MacBook Pro, its primary key is 2. This is just a show me everything in the two tables, right? And then for the truck, inventory ID is 1. And of course, it's going to print out all this stuff, right? You generally, anyway, that's just relational database stuff there, right? However, in Python or whatever language you're programming in, you do the query, you pull back the data that you want in whatever format you need. Okay, so that's pretty much it. But again, the advantage of this process is you have taken a measured approach to introducing changes or refactoring. This process is really called refactoring your database, right? How to refactor your database. So you start off with the version of your database. Just to recap, you run those scripts and then you want to change it. And the reason why you want to do this is because when you get to, you want to take these scripts then, and let's say you're already running version 1 of your database in production, then you want to run these scripts in production, right? Now you may need to save off data, whatever. There's, lots of different issues that I'm not even discussing here. But for the most part, you have your scripts that allow you to then run those, to change your production database, which may already have production data in it. All right. And that's it. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. In my next video, I'll talk about the clean architecture that goes along, or the application that goes along with this. And let me go ahead and run that. So let me exit out of MySQL, CLS, and I'll just come back up here, get out of the database, and run /build -- main, run main. So this is all part of the same project, and you get this little application that you can play with. All right. So the parts that have not implemented, these features are not implemented in this version of this application. But you can call list inventories, hit 2, hit return, and then it makes a query. The Python code makes a query out to the database and brings back whatever inventories are in the database. Press any key to continue, and then let's say we want to select an inventory. So I'm going to select one. And then if I say list items, then it lists all the items from that inventory. Okay, and then exit. So I'll talk about the architecture of this application in another video. But thank you for tuning in. Hope you found this database scripting or evolution video helpful. Talk to you later.